Okay, so hello again to my viewers of the Gamers Walk YouTube channel. Whether you are a subscriber or if you're new to this Gamers Walk YouTube channel, if you like the content I'm about to talk about, then subscribe to the channel and like the video. Okay, so on this video, I wanted to talk about this topic a couple of days ago. I never had a chance to talk about this topic. It's This video is about the full lineup of the PlayStation Classic and plus my thoughts on it. So let's go through the full lineup, not just for I got the lineup on paper, not only for Japan, but also for North America and Europe. Let's go over to the lineup in Japan. Now, I believe Japan and Hong Kong will be sharing the same 20 game lineup. Um, so, yeah, let's go over the lineup for Japan. The 20 games: Arc the Lad 2, Armored Core, Biohazard, Director's Cut, which is also known as Resident Evil. Um, a lot of people, it wasn't obviously, I don't know the reasoning why it's not called Resident Evil in Japan and why it's not called Biohazard in America, but ever since Resident Evil 7, they begin to mix the two Western and Eastern titles together in terms of um, the marketing the game. And it's also reflected on the game's package with Resident Evil 7. So yeah, Arc the Lad 2, Armored Core, Biohazard Director's Cut, Final Fantasy 7 International, which Final Fantasy 7 International is basically the American version of Final Fantasy 7, which was given extra things over the Japanese release. So this Japanese release of an updated version of Final Fantasy 7 also came with an extra fourth disc, which this fourth disc was not um, game content. It was basically like extra content, developer interviews, character sketches, character designs, 3D designs that you could play around and move with. Like I haven't really played Final Fantasy 7 International version. I knew a person in elementary school that no, in high school. Was it in high school in Final Fantasy 7? No, elementary school who had a Japanese version. I There are like four discs and I wanted to see what the fourth disc is. So it's been a while since I've seen, but as I recall, this is what was on the fourth disc of the international version. G Darius, Gratus or Gratis Gaiden, Intelligent Cube, Jumping Flash. Since I'm not good with my Japanese pronouncing Japanese words, I would say the English title: Revelations Persona, Metal Gear Solid, Mr. Driller, Parasite Eve, Ridge Racer Type 4, Saga Frontier, Super Puzzle Fighter 2X, which in America is referred to as Super Puzzle Fighter 2 Turbo, Tekken 3, Battle Arena Toshiden, Wild Arms, and Devil Dice. So that's the lineup for Japan, and I believe also Hong Kong will be sharing the lineup release for Japan. Let's move on for PlayStation Classic games for North America and Europe, and I believe Malaysia, sorry, will also be sharing in this game lineup. So over here in North America, Europe, and I believe Malaysia as well, we'll be getting Battle Area Toshinden, Cool Borders 2, Destruction Derby, Final Fantasy 7, Grand Theft Auto, Intelligent Cube, Jumping Flash, Metal Gear Solid, Mr. Driller, Oddworld, Abe's Odyssey, Rayman, Resident Evil Director's Cut, Revelations Persona, Ridge Racer Type 4, Super Puzzle Fighter 2 Turbo, Siphon Filter Tekken 3, Tom Clancy Rainbow Six, Twisted Metal, and Wild Arms. So that was the lineup for North America, Europe, and I believe Malaysia. We'll also be sharing the lineup. Very a lot of uh, titles are similar. some of the titles are similar within the Japanese and the North American release in terms of like we're both getting a director's cut of Resident Evil, both getting Final Fantasy VII. Although the Japanese are getting the international version with the extra fourth disc content, both getting Persona, and what other games were both getting Ridge Racer Type 4, and also Tekken, Wild Arms, and Mr. Driller, and I believe Jumping Flash, Intelligent Cube, and Mr. Driller, among other things. There's actually some games that will be available on both sides of the ocean, but obviously this list has been catered to favor each side of the ocean. So moving on with my thoughts now, more specifically for the North American lineup, my thoughts on the North American lineup. It's not a bad list of 20 games. Unfortunately, now this list of 20 games is comprised of games that went on to become branded as greatest hits titles. Now, greatest hits titles are games branded by Computer Entertainment, which are now known as. In the past, they've been known as uh, Sony Computer Entertainment America, I think SCEA. Now they're known as SCE. So yeah, this list is comprised of greatest hits titles, which I believe are titles that sold well over 100,000 copies, maybe even 500,000 copies, maybe even a million copies. Well, I know personally for sure, Metal Gear Solid One sold over a million copies. Final Fantasy Seven sold over a million copies. Um, Twisted Metal definitely sold over a million copies. So these are games that like sold above and beyond. And this lineup is mixed in with games that are not greatest hits titles. So there's about, say, out of this lineup, there's about, say, let me count this quickly: one, two, three, four, five. There's about six games in the North American lineup that I personally think shouldn't have been included, especially when you're comparing this to the rest of the games that are greatest hits titles. So let me point these games out that are not greatest hits titles. You have Intelligent Cube, Jumping Flash, Mr. Driller, Revelations Persona, Ridge Racer Type 4, Super Puzzle Fighter 2 Turbo, and Wild Arms. Now, all great games, but I personally think Sony could have gone elsewhere, could have picked other games. And it's amazing that we all had our, as gamers, we all had our, especially when Sony only told us originally when they announced the classic system, they only announced four titles, that being Tekken 3, Wild Arms, Final Fantasy 7, and Ridge Racer Type 4. The rest were up to gamers started to think of what the rest of the lineup was. And I know a lot of people mentioned Ape Escape. A lot of people were hoping Crash Bandicoot would be on here. A lot of people were hoping Castlevania Symphony of the Night would be on here, but unfortunately, due to, in my opinion, IP issues and issues relating to music, some of these games that we wish would have been included in the lineup are not included in the lineup. Something like Ape Escape, which can still, the IP is owned by Sony, Entertainment, is not included on this list, and that's a shame. But oh well, you can download the game through the PlayStation Network and play it on a controller. At least you can play it on a PlayStation system in 2018 or 2019, whatever year you're watching this video, and you can play on the controller, which actually provides not voice, but force feedback on a force feedback controller. Otherwise, this PlayStation Classic does not come with the force feedback DualShock controller. It comes with the regular original PlayStation digital controller. So of these six games, let me suggest replacements for these six titles. go by the list. Now, as for Wild Arms is an RPG. I rented it. I played it for a while. I really liked it, but this could have been easily swapped out for a number of greatest hits titles that are something like Parasite Eve, which is on the Japanese lineup. Um, why wasn't Parasite Eve included in the North American lineup? I have no idea. Maybe due to licensing issues, because I believe I used to own Parasite Eve for PlayStation One. I believe the game was I believe the game was had in-game advertisements relating to I believe Coca-Cola. So maybe there was licensing issues in that where the licensing in Japan and licensing issues in America were different that prevented the game to be brought over into the American version of the system. Where in Japan, those rights issues relating to Coca Cola were able to be. It was Coca Cola or Pepsi, I believe it was Coca Cola. Were able to in Japan. They were able to smooth everything out and release it as a digital title, and obviously North America they had a problem. So that's a title. Another title, Vagrant Story, a greatest hits title along with Parasite Eve. That could have been swapped out for Wild Arms too. Moving on, Ridge Racer Type 4. This is really easy. Gran Turismo. Gran Turismo 1, Gran Turismo 2 could have been swapped out for Ridge Racer Type 4. Ridge Racer Type 4, not a greatest hit seller. What was a greatest hit seller was the original Ridge Racer 1 on the PlayStation. Ridge Racer Type 4, that's another game which I had as a youth alongside Parasite Eve. And I believe that game was two disc. The first disc was Ridge Racer Type 4, and the second disc I believe was it was a not really a remaster, but it was a revised frame rate version. It was a higher frame rate version of Ridge Racer One, which I don't think will be included on this the digital version of Ridge Racer Type 4 for the PlayStation Classic. But anyways, Gran Turismo 1 or Gran Turismo 2 or Ridge Racer 1, all which were greatest hits titles, could have been replaced with Ridge Racer Type 4. Revelations Persona, never got a chance to play this game. This could have been replaced by a number of Final Fantasy titles. There could have been an additional Final Fantasy title on this PlayStation Classic instead of Final Fantasy 7. You could have put Final Fantasy 8, Final Fantasy 9, Final Fantasy Anthology, Final Fantasy Chronicles, Final Fantasy Origins, Final Fantasy Tactics. All those Final Fantasy games were greatest hits sellers on the PlayStation 1. And even something like Vagrant Story you could have put on instead of Revelations Persona. Moving on, Super Puzzle Fighter 2 Turbo. I played this in arcades, never got a chance to play on PlayStation. You could have replaced this with a number of games. Pac-Man World, which was Grace's title. Um, Moving on, Mr. Driller. Never played this game. Maybe I played it on a demo disc, but easily could have replaced this with again Pac-Man World, Castlevania Symphony of the Night. Oh, going back to even with you could have replaced this even with say even a fighter game, another fighter game. Um, Not a fighter game. Sorry, you could have put a Tetris game on here instead of a Mr. Driller. Going back to Super Puzzle Fighter 2 Turbo, it's a shame there isn't a Street Fighter game on this collection on this lineup, but uh, instead of Super Puzzle Fighter 2, yeah, I know they probably wanted to put puzzle game on here, but they could have easily swapped out Puzzle Fighter 2 Turbo for for a mainline Street Fighter game which was greatest hit sellers, mainly being Street Fighter Alpha 2 or even Street Fighter Alpha 3. Um, so you have the last two games, Jumping Flash and Intelligent Cube. What else can I say? You could have replaced this with, I said before, Castlevania Symphony of the Night. Could replace it with Pac-Man World. Could replace it with various other games that were greatest hits sellers. Obviously, they probably wouldn't have put Castlevania Symphony of the Night on here because it recently has been re-released on the PlayStation Network for PlayStation 4. So I can understand them not putting this on the PlayStation Classic, but it would have been really nice to put for them to put this on PlayStation Classic. Um, as far as RPGs, Wild Arms, I never mentioned this before. I just came to my mind. Chrono Cross, you could have replaced with Wild Arms. Now, Resident Evil Director's Cut, um, greatest hit seller, I think deserved to be on here, but also it could have been easily replaced with more well-known Resident Evil titles, such as Resident Evil 2, or even say Resident Evil 3, and especially Resident Evil 2. That would have been perfect promotion for Resident Evil 2 remastered on the PlayStation 4 if you include Resident Evil 2 on here. Okay, so that does it for the full lineup and my thoughts on the PlayStation Classic. Um, I'll be pre-ordering a PlayStation Classic. I'll be reviewing it here on YouTube. I'm gonna try to see how I can get video footage out of the console, but I'll try to do that. And I can't wait to get the PlayStation Classic. To tell you the truth, I haven't owned a PlayStation One in years, so actually the one that I had was it belonged to my uncle, and he loaned it to us for like years, and then he took it back. I think I was with that system for like 8 years, and oh man, all the games, all the that I played, fantastic. And yeah, I can't wait to own this PlayStation Classic. Ugh, I wish it came with a DualShock controller, but hopefully Sony announces DualShock controller because some of these games on the list, especially games like Metal Gear Solid, like how can you? I've never like a lot of us never played. Well, personally, people that I've known of, like how can you play Metal Gear Solid without the DualShock controller? You know, just is not gonna be the same, especially when you're fighting Psycho Mantis and and not you're not getting that force feedback. It's gonna be real strange. Hopefully, Sony can make a decision soon about including a DualShock controller as as an optional controller. Okay, so that does it for my full lineup and thoughts on the PlayStation Classic. If you like this video, like and subscribe to this Gamers Block YouTube channel. I'll see you on Friday for episode 1 of Gaming Life. All right, see you.